Hello again. I've got another quick video. This time I wanted to show how I build these little robots I've used in a couple other videos, and I'll start by opening up this Apple Motion quick here. I've already made the project to have it to show. This is basically a structure of using the 3D from the library. These are all the cylinders. So if you want to place the cylinder on a particular group, I've made this up so there's different groupings depending on the segment that moves. With this, I'm just going to spin it around for you so you can see. I got the main group here, so this is what contains all the other groups so that I can do animations to the group as a whole. And you can see here I've just got it rotating around on the y-axis. If you want to make it go, say, on the x-axis as well, you just put a keyframe in. I wanted to point out, as I usually do, that when I make up these projects as well, I like to use 360 frames. It makes it very easy to then add multiples of 360 as a rotation, so that when you finish up, you end up where you started. So as you see at the beginning here, it's this y-axis started at 0, and it's gone through 2 rotations. That's 720 degrees. I like to do my rotations in multiples of 360. It just brings everything back to the beginning. So when you're looping them around, it creates a loop, and you may not necessarily need that, but I think it's good to have good practice to do that. So if I put in I put 0 at the beginning. If at the end I say wanted to do 3600 degrees, that'll be 10 rotations. And you can see the keyframes down here too. So these are you can go in here and edit these as you want, and you do the ease in or ease out. So in this case, you do the ease in, and down here at the beginning here, you can ease it out. So there we go. So we get just a little bit more of a smoother acceleration and deceleration. So now we've got it going in 10 rotations on the x-axis there, and it's still going around on the y-axis as well. So this is the starting point anyway. As I said before, in the library, you've got the cylinder you can apply, and then you've got this cylinder that you can duplicate and change the shape and all that with the scaling. One thing I do like to always maintain is that when you're working with these and you want them to be in a line, like the segments of the arm and the segments of the leg and the foot and the hands, you want those all to be on the same axis. And I'll show you that when I go to the left side. And I'll just move that out of the way so you can see it. So you can see these are all lined up nicely. Generally, I like to work from 0 so that when you do multiples, then they're all on the same axis. And over here, you can really bring this right down to, scale it right down to something skinny, pencil thin. You can make different shapes that way. And now you see I've got that. So, and then from this point, I've got it at 0, x, and y, and I'll just do minus 300. If I'm working off the axis, I like to at least keep these numbers easily repeatable. So when you make duplicates, you can keep those numbers in your head as you sometimes will be transferring these numbers across to different shapes. But so basically, I just took this shape and duplicated a few times. I start with here. If you when you're at the 0 point and you say you want these to move up a certain axis as part of the animation, I might leave this one where it is, but this one I'll put a keyframe there, and I'll put a keyframe there, and keyframe there. So they're all where they are. They're all inside of each other. I can start generally with the top. Now I can just move that Y up there. And you notice because these cylinders are actually on this main group, there's the animation path of everything. So you can switch that animation path off down here at the overlays if you don't want to necessarily see those. Sometimes they can get in the way when you're doing the fine tuning of the movement and position and all that. So So anyway, we got that at 350. This one here, I'll just bring that up to there. And this one, bring it up somewhere there. And if you want to then change, maybe make that 2 and 2, and this one 3 and 3, and this one 4, 4. Give it a bit of a telescopic feel for it. So now what you've got is a telescope there. You can't see it because it's moving with this. If you want to, you can just select all 4 of these, create a group. Now you've got a group which you can drag right out. I'll just name that Telly. If you want to, you can drag it right out of the group. So now it's separate of everything else. And that now this group can be moved around individually. We'll put it back on front. So I moved that out of the way a bit. You can scale it up, the whole thing. You can reposition. I'll show you in a minute in the next section, but it's very important to go down here and get onto your anchor point. And if you want to make sure where your anchor point is set, so when it rotates. So now that's going to telescope out. Maybe we want to change the Z-axis. So we go and put a keyframe. And then maybe we do this. Just a quick one. So now we've got this thing coming out. So you can see here, you can get some pretty good hydraulics feel to these things. So this is the first one. So I'll just finish this little section off by going through. First of all, I'm going to take my 2 fingers on my trackpad and squeeze those together. Squeeze it together with 2 fingers, and you can scale that up a bit or down. I've labeled these all because this has got sections of the leg, the core, and abdomen, so that I can, on this section, if I want to, I can add animations to the whole unit or individually. How I've built these up, like I did with this telescope, I actually started off with individual cylinders and then duplicated them in the same position at 0, 0. From that point, I can move them around and then move the anchor point so that it is rotating on the anchor point where it's supposed to, like this is at the knee here. This section I haven't done the moving of the anchor points yet because I wanted to demonstrate it. But if I go to the side view again, I've got the foot, and firstly, I've got the anchor point tool selected. First thing you want to always be thinking is how it's structured. So this one here, you're obviously going to want to take it back to the heel. When I have 2, usually I do this appendage, get everything sorted, the anchor point, everything all sorted, and then duplicate. So anyway, we've got the anchor point is down here. Now I can actually just look at that and I go, I'm going to just put -210. We can make our positions. Well, let's firstly think of where we are in space. We're looking at the left side. So we're going to move the Z position forward or into the plus. Make that -6, give ourselves a bit of a heel. I'm doing that so that when I do the next one, I can actually keep track. Our anchor point is at -210, -6, and -320. So I'll just plug these in. So that, and if we're looking at the left side, that means this is the x-axis that we rotate. So now you can tap your foot. So now we've got control of each one of these cylinders. Now just bear in mind that every one of these cylinders was created from the same original one and then duplicated, and then we just changed the different scaling, the X, Y, and Z. So this is how you're getting these individual shapes, flat, and so you're seeing here that it's sort of flat and oval shape. That's from your scales here. So, and the same thing with this one. Now we select on that. We could do the same thing with sort of rotated on the x-axis already. And of course you can keyframe these all along, so as you're moving along you basically can change its position. And the same with this one. We have 0 there. And Maybe give it just a random. So as you see, organization is the key. Keeping all these layers organized so that you know what you're doing with each one. So now you can see that the feet are going up and down with the movement. We'll just go down through. We've got the main group, which has the head, the two arms, and the two legs. I'm going to actually rename these legs. And of course, if we start breaking these down, we've got the leg. So we got the abdomen, which is just this little spine unit, and there's one on the left, one on the right. And we've got this core, which is another cylinder. And if I keep it all on the left side, so technically I can make this whole thing rotate and move if I want to. In this particular case, I just did some positions only. You basically see I've got these all organized into groups. Selected this and this, formed a group, called it a hand. You see we're making these groups up within the group so that we always can find and navigate to a particular thing that we want to animate. This one here. This is basically a little bit more complex. I've got it animating up, stretching out. It's pretty boring. And if we can see the animation path there. So what's happening is I've got this overall unit moving up in the y-axis. And we can see that I've got these moving in the Y space as well. So all these things, ankle, and which is made up of the foot and the lower leg, the calf, and then we've got a center cylinder, and then this top one, which would be like the thigh. Now you see I've also paid close attention to where the anchor points are. Generally what I do with this is I try to do mass movement first and then go back and slowly make the movements to the knees, the bends, the ankle changes, the finger movements, the head turns and all that. So here I just wanted to show you how it's getting constructed is very important. This layer hierarchy that we've got going. And the same with the arms. We've got upper forearm, 3 fingers, as I do in the next one, which I will go to now. So here I've given it some more movement. Go to the anchor point again. So you can see here each of these groups have got anchor points placed at the same spot. So the whole arm can move the shoulder, and there you see the animation going on there. This is the head. We've got the antenna and 2 eyes. This is all joined up as one unit. I made sure the anchor point is down at the neck, but all the animation is happening at the head, so that we have twisting and turning and nodding, and as you go down here you can look at your animation paths with your keyframes down here and make some changes there if you need to. It's always good to have this animated section opened up and ready to be manipulated. You can put your easy ease on each one, so you can open it right up so that you can view everything if you want. So as you select each item that's got an animation on, there's your path there. So, and then we click on this little thing here, we can make sure that the keyframes are in the window as well. So I'm just going to finish off by saying that once I have an animation that I like to export these with the transparency as a background. As you see, if I change this to transparent, and I've done a video on alpha channels and transparencies and that sort of thing. This is quite handy for creating something that will overlay on top of another clip in, say, iMovie or Final Cut Pro or Premiere Pro, that sort of thing. Anything with a transparency like this. So your alpha channel is at 0 everywhere here except where you've placed the image, which has an alpha channel. If we look up here along this line, we go to alpha is equal to 1, and the colors are somewhere between 0 and 1 as well. So I've done a video on that as well. So might like to check that out at some point. But this is ready for quickly going and exporting it. One thing I pay attention to is the codec. When you want a transparency, I've tried it with the ProRes 422 with the color and alpha down here at the color channels. So far, I've only found that exporting in 4444 is the only way. And if you notice, the file size just doubled because it's included the alpha channel in the color sampling. That extra number is just, it's giving you that extra channel, which in this case is all set to 0. So you only have the robot within the image and everything else is transparent. So you can overlay this on top of another clip, which I will show you. Of course, you just hit next and name it, that sort of thing, and off you go. So, and if you're liking my my workspace here, my desktop, I recently did a video on how to create a custom desktop that helps you keep your assets and all your project components nice and organized. For those obsessive compulsive types like myself, it's quite handy to actually keep. And you can do whatever you like, and of course you can draw this up on a piece of paper as well, and some very artistic stuff going. Take a JPEG and then load it into your wallpaper setting in your settings. But check out the video if you like. It's very short. Here I've got this thrown into iMovie. This bottom layer is this one here. So I've basically included the transparency on that export, and now I can overlay onto a back screen. You have your bottom clip, which is, there's no transparency on that, but the top one I've put in there, they are versions of the export with the transparency, so you can see that they're overhanging. If you notice, as we select the clips, this is in cutaway setting. Those are your video overlay settings. Here I got picture in picture, which you can actually scale up. The cutaway doesn't have any ability to scale, but when you've got it set to picture in picture, you can actually scale it and move it around, so, and position it over top of the other clip. So that's quite handy. We can scale it around too, so that's quite handy to do that. But that's only when you have a transparency attached to the export. So there's quite a bit of working between Apple Motion and iMovie that makes it worth doing. You can do a lot with iMovie by itself, but if you want to take it just that one step up, I enjoy doing it because it's just another thing to learn about graphic design and animation and all that. So I've been doing it for a while now. I started in After Effects with Premiere Pro, and I've used Final Cut Pro with Apple Motion. So two different workflows. Definitely, if you want the most professional way it's available, you're going to have to pay for it. So the Adobe stuff is quite good for that. Got some videos on some of the After Effects animations that I've done. Quite happy with. But anyway, I think this is about all I wanted to cover in this particular video. With the 3D builds, it's limited because you only have the color white. If you want to maintain this appearance of it being a solid unit, then you can't do anything to the surface in Apple Motion. Its appearance as a composite shape. There's a colorized feature, but it starts looking a bit like an X-ray, and it throws off a lot of the animations. I've had success in throwing lights and stuff on it. You can add light, but when you start throwing light onto something that you want the transparency for, then it affects the transparency, does something to the transparency where you can't overlay it anymore. So definitely have to leave the lighting off. I use the camera for the overlay. This case here, when you add a camera here, it gives you the different views, so that comes in quite handy. That gives you the different views to actually see, if everything's lined up nicely. Say anchor points and sort of thing. So the camera is definitely the way to go. And when you start adding lights to a 3D project and you want the transparency export, it for some reason it was messing it up. So I've learned that already, so I tend to avoid that. I hope this was helpful for you. It's certainly worth going into your 3D objects and having a play around. Start a new project. Got it 1920 1080. Here is where I like to set it in frames, and 360 is good for that. Here, so when you have a blank group and you open up your library and bring in your 3D object, it comes in right at 0, 0, 0. If you go up here and add your camera, it switches it to 3D for you. And then when you look at the left side, it's sort of off because the camera's sort of accommodating for that. So you do have to look at your Z property on the cylinder. So if we open up position, we open up rotation, we open up scale, then with the camera, it zeroes the shape out sort of back here. But that is something that's not a real problem. The main thing is your X and Y is always the same at 0. So when you're copying these things, and here you can just hit duplicate, Command D, you've got a couple different shapes. And as I did before, then you go in and you adjust your scale. In this case, I'll just adjust the X scale back, adjust the Y scale back, and you can see it there in the middle, so that you're giving yourself a bit of a gauge. And then this next one, so you've done the bottom. I might take that down position wise. So we've got that, and then the next one up, we can scale it a bit differently. Here I like to sort of use the slider to work out the direction. As you see, we're starting to build up something a bit interesting. So, and this could be 70 if you want. So now we've got something that looks a bit interesting there already, and it's something it's animatable. We'll do the camera now. So on that group, I can make this group rotate on the Z-axis. Zero it back out, get our anchor point. And the rotation is a bit different. So, and then if we want to look at our camera, when you have the camera, it's best to look at the top, because then you can see one there. You can bring the angle back, and then the camera itself can rotate around the y-axis, or move that way a little bit, reset back to 0. And this is where the 360 comes in handy. If you want to do a quick animation, do that at the Y, take it to the end, and put in 360. It's always got to be 360 or 720 or 1440, those sort of multiples, to make it work really well. And then, yeah, we've got the active camera back, and then here we can go, just do a quick rotation around. So as you see, you can make some pretty interesting compositive shapes that are animatable. Like I said about the color, though, unfortunately, I haven't been able to work out a good way. In the filters, there is a section called Colorize. It's a color that you can change. As soon as you apply it, though, to this, all of a sudden, see how it just doesn't seem to want to work with the illusion broken up a little bit that way. So I don't like that at all. So anyway, we'll take that off. Anyway, we can watch our robot man run away as we head out. Anyway, I hope it was helpful. Give you some more homework to do. So I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks very much.